I love the title of your broadcast because this is where money meets meaning. That touch point, it creates a hunger or a desire to know and bring reasoning and meaning and purpose behind what we do. And that appetite in me around probably my mid 40s finally got to the point where I wanted to answer questions about myself and understand why I was doing. Really, I needed meaning for what I was doing. Accounting work is good work. I really enjoy that career, but I was trying to assemble big words and ideas like purpose and meaning and identity and value and all of these big ideas and assemble it in a way that I could, in my linear accountant brain, understand, okay, this is a way of making sense and making my life matter a little bit more than just those long tax season hours that every accountant enjoys. And so that was the catalyst, was I think a hunger for meaning.
You got to bless our 40s. I know many people wake up in their 40s searching
Don't
for
we though?
that. Yeah, we do.
Totally. That's a funny way to put it. Yeah, I was working for my own company, my own small tax practice that I was running, and then I also was working full time in a church as their CFO, and it was like you said earlier, it was just exploding in growth. So I had just two wonderful careers happening, and I was really prospering on the outside. I had income that was more than what I had hoped for, and I had friends and influence and a lot of success around me. My home life was really good. My wife and I were still married, still love each other, so we managed through all those times and raised our children, but there was still something missing on the inside. And I guess that can sound a little trite, like it's maybe been overused, but it was my reality. I felt alive on the outside and dead on the inside. And even though tangible success around us is a wonderful thing, and I want that and I enjoy that. I want that for others as well. But really, the inside work is as important and, of course, more important than the external. And so
God,
finding
you're
ways
so
of
right.
reaching that and touching that and turning that on, that awareness on, or that livelihood on, or whatever that is exactly, was a turning point in my life.
Yeah.
And,
I'm
I
sure
have
so many of
names.
us can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
empty, and you're working so hard and empty. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm watching my two young sons. I have two sons, and they're in their 30s now, and they're in that really difficult space of life, right? From about the late 20s to probably the mid 40s or maybe late 40s. That's a tough 20 years right in there. But I do think that there are ways to navigate it well.
Yeah.
And I have found some of those ways. And that's what I now formed my nonprofit, Prosperous Soul. And its job is to run around and educate around the subject of money, around this idea on the inside, and how to really get people past wounds and betrayals and sabotage and heartaches and disappointments and sadnesses and dislocations with their money. And so
Can you,
that's the piece that I enjoy now.
and I know how powerful that can be because you and I have worked with some of my clients in this area. Can you speak to an example so someone can really grab onto what you're talking about?
Yeah, one comes to mind. He was a man in his, I would say, probably late 40s. He was an accountant and in another part of the country, and we were having sessions together around his life and his economics. He was extremely successful. He had, I remember, 5 goals, and he had met them all. Things like $1 million in the bank account, I believe, was one of his goals. $100,000 a month of income. I can't remember his other goals, but he had used this goal model to really set up his expectations so that if I can reach those goals, then I will feel peace, I think was his goal, his target when we first
Mhm.
started working together. And what he found is that whenever he would reach his goals, the goalpost would move. In other words, he'd reevaluate and say, I still don't feel that peace, so I'm going to have to, maybe if it was instead of 100,000 a month, maybe 200,000 or
Mhm.
250,000. And of course, that's the problem with goals is once we achieve them, they move, the
Yeah.
goalposts move on us. Anyway, this man, we began to work together. We ended up working for over 2 years together, and it was a really rich relationship between us. I really enjoyed it. But the probably the main breakthrough he had came in around 4 or 5 sessions. So around that time, we identified an imposter syndrome. He, even though he was sought out, for his work, he had reliable, trustworthy collaborations. He'd been working in for 10 or 15 years with people. He was an expert in a certain type of tax transaction, and he had a
Mhm.
real strong niche and was a complete professional. And yet he felt he was a fraud, and he did never displayed it. I would never read it on his face because he was
Mhm.
just a big personality, and he was of course brilliant and excellent and an expert, and yet he had this thing niggling away at the inside. And so the testimony there is after about 4 to 5 sessions, we unearthed that thing and resolved it for him. And he suddenly realized his identity was shifted.